Reports from the galaxy's outer reaches detailed the strange customs of humans, a species so unusual that even the Zarikian High Scholarly Guild couldn't ignore them. The issue, as Gree explained during a guild meeting, his gill flaps fluttering with cultural unease, was the human hot water treatment. Knar, the guild's chief archivist, described in a detached tone how humans immerse themselves in nearly boiling water, seemingly for enjoyment. She delivered the word pleasure as if it were contaminated. Gree, incredulous, questioned their survival, to which Knar replied with existential despair, stating that humans not only survived but thrived, even inviting others to partake in this so-called relaxation. Gree is fan of the Zarikian High Scholarly Guild's problem, though he still wasn't sure if it was a scientific conundrum or a personal meltdown, stemmed from the influx of reports from the galactic fringes concerning the strange habits of humans. Ordinarily, such reports were dismissed. The galaxy, after all, was a melting pot of eccentricities. However, this situation was different. They do what ? Gree had spluttered during the latest guild assembly, his four gill flaps fluttering in a display of distinct cultural disorientation. Hot water treatment, Knar, the guild's chief archivist, reiterated in her typically impassive monotone. Humans immerse themselves in liquids heated to near-boiling temperatures for the seemingly inexplicable purpose of pleasure. She delivered the last word with the same distaste one might reserve for a contaminated specimen. And they live through this? Gree had demanded, incredulous. Knar, her voice laced with a certain cosmic weariness, corrected him, they thrive . According to our intel, they even encourage others to participate, referring to this practice as relaxation. The assembled Zarikian scholars recoiled in unison. Zarikians, having evolved on Glob 4, a planet so placid it had once earned the Galactic Monthly Award for Least Stressful Environment, were ill-equipped to comprehend such behavior. Their most threatening predator was a species of carnivorous flora known for apologizing profusely before taking a nibble, and even that was considered rather uncouth. The concept of willingly immersing oneself in scalding water was, to the Zarikian sensibility, not merely perplexing, but bordering on an existential nightmare. The thought lingered with Gree long after the meeting concluded. The image of humans basking in near-boiling liquid haunted his thoughts. Were these beings inherently self-destructive? Were they simply deranged? Or, most disturbing of all, had the Zarikian somehow missed a fundamental truth about the nature of galactic existence? The mere possibility gnawed at him. He resolved to take decisive action. I shall journey to this earth, he declared dramatically in the solitude of his private chambers, though his pronouncement was met only with silence. And I will decipher the enigma of this so-called hot water treatment. Greer's voyage to Earth was unremarkable, save for a minor navigational error that briefly placed him in Saturn's orbit. Far too many rings, he grumbled, entirely excessive. When his spherical craft finally landed on the blue-green world, he was promptly greeted by a human delegation. "Hello there," a cheerful Earthling chirped, her face contorted in what Gree initially perceived as either a threat display or a species-wide facial abnormality. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Brenda." Gree observed her warily, making a mental note to inquire about the peculiar mouth contortions later. "Greetings, Brenda. I am Greer's fan of the Zarikian High Scholarly Guild. I have come to investigate your species' unusual customs." Brenda's smile broadened, a development Gree found somewhat disconcerting. "Oh, you mean like barbecues? Karaoke nights? Speed dating?" Gree hesitated. None of those activities seemed to involve near-lethal submersion in boiling water. "No," he said slowly. "I am here to witness the practice you refer to as hot water treatment. Brenda blinked, her smile momentarily faltering before returning with redoubled enthusiasm. "Oh, you mean baths?" "Yeah, baths. Or maybe saunas? Or hot tubs? Depends what you're after." Gree stared at her, his large, gelatinous eyes unblinking. "Your species engages in multiple forms of this hot water ordeal?" Brenda laughed, a sound Gree initially mistook for a choking fit. "Oh, it's not an ordeal, it's self-care." Eager to impress her extraterrestrial visitor, Brenda led Gree to a nearby spa. Gree, driven by his need to comprehend this apparent madness, followed reluctantly, his tentacle-like appendages twitching nervously. The spa was a warm, humid place, filled with soothing music and the gentle sounds of running water. Humans lounged about in various states of undress, a sight Gree did his best to ignore. "Why are they smiling?" he whispered to Brenda. "Is it delirium brought on by the pain?" Brenda chuckled, handing him a fluffy white towel. "You'll see. Here, try this." On Glob 4, a planet renowned for its tranquility, even winning the Galactic Monthly Award for Least Stressful Environment, the Zarikians struggled to grasp the human concept of hot water treatment. Their most formidable predator was a species of carnivorous plant known to profusely apologize before nibbling, a behavior considered somewhat rude in Zarikian society. Therefore, the notion of willingly submerging oneself in scalding water was not only baffling but bordered on a metaphysical horror. Gree, haunted by visions of humans luxuriating in near-boiling water, wrestled with the implications. Were humans inherently masochistic? Were they simply insane? Or, perhaps most troubling, had the Zarikians overlooked a fundamental aspect of existence in the galaxy? The thought gnawed at Gree, prompting him to take action. Alone in his quarters, he dramatically declared his intention to journey to Earth and unravel the enigma of this hot water treatment, though his pronouncement was met with only the quiet hum of his personal environment control system. Greer's journey to Earth was mostly uneventful, except for a brief navigational hiccup that placed him in Saturn's rings, a celestial feature he deemed entirely superfluous. Upon landing on the blue-green planet, he was greeted by a delegation of humans. A particularly enthusiastic Earthling, Brenda, welcomed him with a facial expression Gree initially interpreted as a threat display or a species-wide deformity. Brenda's cheerful greeting and unusual facial contortions, which Gree mentally noted to investigate later, were followed by a brief exchange of pleasantries. Gree explained his mission to study the human species' peculiar customs. Brenda, eager to showcase Earth's diverse cultural practices, listed examples such as barbecues, karaoke nights, and speed dating. None of these activities, however, seemed to involve the near-fatal immersion in boiling water that Gree was seeking. He clarified his purpose, specifically referencing hot water treatment. Brenda, after a momentary pause, identified the practice as bathing, suggesting variations like saunas and hot tubs, depending on the desired experience. Gree was taken aback. His large, gelatinous eyes widened as he realized the humans engaged in multiple forms of this hot water ritual. Brenda, mistaking his shock for intrigue, laughed and explained it was not torture but self-care. Driven by a desire to understand this seeming madness, Gree reluctantly followed Brenda, his tentacle-like limbs twitching nervously. The spa was warm and humid, filled with the soft sounds of trickling water and relaxing music. Humans reclined in various stages of undress, a sight Gree did his best to avoid. "Why are they smiling?" he whispered, concerned. "Is it a delirium brought on by the discomfort?" Brenda chuckled, offering him a soft white towel. "You'll see. Here, try this." A short while later, Gree found himself in a shallow pool of steaming water. His initial impulse was to yell, his second was to yell even louder. "It's burning me," he exclaimed, splashing water as he scrambled for the edge. A middle-aged man relaxing nearby raised an eyebrow. "First time, hey?" he asked, unimpressed. Gree, gasping and flailing his appendages, could only stare in disbelief. Brenda attempted to soothe him. "It's just hot water, you'll adjust. Trust me, it's good for you." Gree stared at her, gills fluttering rapidly. "Good for me? I feel like my very molecular structure is dissolving." "That's just the toxins leaving your body," Brenda confidently asserted, although she had no basis for this claim. Gree eyed the water skeptically. Could it be that humans possess some evolutionary adaptation allowing them to endure such apparent agony? He glanced at the other humans, all seemingly at peace, as if the heated water were some enlightening elixir. Against his better judgment, he cautiously lowered himself back into the pool, wincing as the warmth surrounded him. "This is insane," he muttered. Brenda simply grinned. "Welcome to Earth." Gree sat rigidly in the steaming water, every fiber of his Zarikian being protesting the relaxation Brenda and the other humans insisted upon. His gelatinous skin prickled, his sensory nodes buzzed, and he suspected at least 3 of his appendages were showing signs of heat damage. "This is lunacy," he declared, his voice echoing in the tiled spa. "Why would any sensible species willingly subject themselves to this liquid inferno?" A human named Carl, who was lounging nearby with a damp towel over his face, lifted a finger languidly. "It's all about the circulation, man. Gets the blood flowing. Good for the soul." Gree turned to Brenda. "Is this Carl your physician? A spiritual guide, perhaps?" Brenda snorted. "Carl's just a guy who comes here every Thursday because his wife likes the sauna." Gree blinked his large eyes, unsure what a wife or a Thursday was, but the idea that Carl, a seemingly ordinary member of this species, could casually tolerate such a scalding environment filled him with a mixture of awe and existential dread. Determined to collect data, Gree activated his neural recorder with a flick of his wrist tentacle. Observation log, Day 1, humans possess a disconcerting tolerance for extended exposure to extreme temperatures. Hypothesis, their internal structure may include some form of love-resistant organ system. Further study required. Brenda, overhearing him, tilted her head. "Love-resistant? We're just adaptable. Hot water, cold water, it's all good." "Cold water?" Gree shuddered. "Please tell me that's not another one of your bizarre practices." "Oh, you should try ice baths," Carl chimed in, now sitting up and looking far too enthusiastic for Greer's comfort. "Real invigorating. Like a slap in the face, but for your whole body." Gree stared at Carl, trying to comprehend the casual brutality of the suggestion. "You people have an alarming tendency to inflict discomfort upon yourselves for invigoration." Brenda shrugged. "You gotta keep things interesting." Following the relaxing bath, a term Gree had come to consider a gross misnomer, Brenda introduced him to the sauna. This small, wooden chamber was filled with an intense, stifling heat, leading Gree to wonder if humans were secretly devotees of some fire-based deity. Brenda, with a theatrical gesture, announced, "This is a sauna. It's a very hot room where you sweat out all the bad stuff." Gree, appalled, inquired, "By bad stuff, do you mean essential bodily fluids?" Brenda reassured him it was as detoxifying and good for the skin. Gree hesitated at the doorway, his sensory nodes buzzing with apprehension. He had barely endured the hot water, and now they were suggesting he enter what seemed like a self-imposed oven. But his scholarly curiosity won, and with a deep, tremulous breath, he stepped inside. The heat hit him like a blast from a plasma cannon. "This is an execution chamber," he proclaimed, clutching a wooden bench for support. "You're cooking me alive." Brenda, lounging on a bench with infuriating calmness, waved him off. "It's not so bad. Just wait a bit, you'll feel great later." Gree slumped onto the bench, his gelatinous form wilting in the oppressive heat. His recorder buzzed faintly as he mumbled, "Observation log, supplement, sauna confirmed as a species-wide human death ritual. Survival appears to be due to some form of evolutionary sadism." To his utter bewilderment, the other humans in the sauna appeared perfectly comfortable. Carl was even pouring water onto hot stones, creating a surge of searing steam. "Why are you doing that?" Gree demanded, flapping his appendages in a panic. "More steam, more sweat," Carl replied cheerfully. "That's where the magic happens." Greer's gills fluttered uselessly in the suffocating air. He felt his body reaching its thermal limits, yet he couldn't look away from the humans, who appeared not only unaffected but genuinely content. As he sat there, melting into a puddle of confusion and discomfort, a disturbing thought began to form: could the humans be onto something? When they finally emerged, Brenda handed Gree some water. "How do you feel?" she asked, her tone bordering on smug. Gree stared at the water, then at her. "How do I feel?" he echoed. "I feel like I've been through the heart of a star." He hesitated, his sensory nodes flickering. The truth was, he didn't feel entirely awful. There was a strange lightness in his limbs, a curious clarity in his thoughts. Could it be that the human madness held some merit? I feel oddly functional, he admitted grudgingly. Brenda grinned. Told you. Greer's report on human heat rituals reached the Zarikian High Scholarly Guild like a supernova alert. The guild members, prone to overreacting, convened an emergency council to address what they called the boiling problem. This is clearly a power play, declared Robnik SCR, a senior scholar whose usual approach to conflict involved immediate surrender. The humans are showing off their superior pain tolerance to intimidate us. Ridiculous, countered Lorik Prib, the guild's chief mathematician. What species would demonstrate dominance by sitting in hot water? This is either a brilliant bluff or pure insanity. Gree, appearing via holotransmission, cleared his throat. If I may, esteemed colleagues, the humans claim this practice is not about intimidation, but a peculiar form of self-improvement. Self-improvement? Robnik sputtered. Do they also jump into molten lava to exfoliate? Not that I've observed, Gree replied, though they do have a ritual involving ice water that can only be described as voluntary self-punishment. A collective shudder rippled through the assembled scholars. This cannot stand, Prib declared. If we are to maintain our reputation as the galaxy's foremost intellectuals, we must prove we, too, can endure these so-called heat rituals. Robnik flared his nasal membranes. You're suggesting we participate in this madness? Precisely, Prib stated with a steely resolve that would have been admirable if it weren't so misguided. 2 weeks later, a delegation of Zarikian dignitaries arrived on Earth, led by Prib herself. Gree, who had stayed on Earth for further observation, and, if he were honest, out of morbid fascination, greeted them at the landing site with a mixture of relief and dread. You actually came, he said, disbelief coloring his voice. Of course we came, Prib replied, her posture stiff and resolute. We will not allow the humans to monopolize the art of suffering in the pursuit of self-betterment. Take us to their chambers of boiling torment. The delegation was led to the same spa where Gree had experienced his inaugural bath. Brenda, radiating an almost oblivious cheerfulness, greeted them. Wow, more visitors. You guys are really into baths, huh? Prib, with the solemnity of someone about to undergo a sacred rite, announced, we are here to experience your hot water treatment. Brenda, slightly puzzled, tilted her head. Well, you've come to the right place. We've got hot tubs, saunas, steam rooms, you name it. Steam rooms, whispered a Zarikian delegate, eye stalks quivering. They subject themselves to boiling air? Gree sighed. You'll get used to it. Or at least you'll stop screaming eventually. The first brave Zarikian to enter the hot tub was Grobar Yilk, a mid-ranking official known for his cautious nature. As he sank into the water, his body stiffened. It burns, he shrieked, thrashing about as if the water were a sentient predator. I can feel my molecules disintegrating. Brenda chuckled. That's just the initial shock. It's good for you, I promise. Grobar turned to Prib, his gelatinous skin trembling. This is psychological warfare. I'm certain of it. Prib, ignoring him, stepped resolutely into the tub. Her expression instantly shifted to a mixture of surprise and betrayal. Why does this feel like slow cooking? It's relaxing once you get settled, Brenda said encouragingly. Relaxing? Prib gasped. This is a calculated assault on one's very essence. Despite their initial protests, the Zarikians persevered, determined to overcome the ordeal. One by one, they braved the hot tub, each emerging with a blend of awe and horror. By the time they reached the sauna, their resolve was weakening. Why are the walls made of wood? Grobar demanded. It feels like being trapped in a burning tree trunk. Prib, sweat beading on her gelatinous skin, gritted her teeth. We must endure. For science. Gree, observing from a safe distance, couldn't help but admire their stubbornness. You're all insane, he muttered, though a small part of him felt a strange sense of pride. Brenda, oblivious to the existential drama unfolding around her, offered Prib a glass of cucumber water. You guys are doing great. Next time, we'll try the cold plunge. By the end of their third day, the Zarikian delegation had reached two conclusions: humans were a species of baffling extremes, and their apparent enjoyment of voluntary discomfort bordered on the masochistic. Yet, despite every instinct telling them to flee, Prib and her team felt compelled to understand this ritual. This practice, Prib began, cautiously nibbling a cucumber slice in the spa lounge, it's not simply physical torment. It's profoundly psychological. Humans appear to derive meaning from their capacity to endure. Gree, who had grown strangely accustomed to the spa environment, shook his head. It's more than endurance. They embrace it. They transform discomfort into something enjoyable. Or at least they convince themselves that it is. Brenda, overhearing the conversation as she folded towels, chimed in, "You guys are really overthinking this. It's just relaxing, you know? Unwind, detox, get rid of all the bad stuff." Grobar, still damp from his latest sauna session, whimpered from a nearby chair. If this is what they call detoxing, I'd hate to see what they consider punishment. Prib ignored him, focusing intently on Brenda. You claim this practice brings relaxation, yet every fiber of my being screams that I should be preparing my last will and testament. Explain yourself. Well, Brenda said, settling into a chair, it's like this. Life's stressful, right? Sometimes you just need to reset. A little heat, a little sweat, and boom, stress gone. Plus, it's social. You chat, you laugh, you bond. Like communal suffering, but fun. The phrase communal suffering, but fun hung in the air like a philosophical paradox. Greer's report on the human hot water treatment reached the Zarikian High Scholarly Guild with the impact of a supernova warning. The guild, prone to dramatic reactions, immediately called an emergency meeting to discuss what they termed the boiling water predicament. Robnik SCR, a senior scholar whose typical response to conflict was immediate surrender, declared, "This is obviously a strategic dominance display. The humans are flaunting their superior ability to withstand pain as a form of intimidation." Lorik Prib, the guild's chief mathematician, countered, "Absurd. What species would demonstrate superiority by stewing in hot water? This is either an elaborate ruse or utter madness." Gree, appearing via holo transmission, interjected, "Esteemed colleagues, if I may, the humans assert that this practice is not about intimidation, but a unique form of self-betterment." Self-betterment? Robnik sputtered incredulously. Do they also jump into volcanoes for exfoliation? Not that I've witnessed, Gree replied dryly, although they do have a ritual involving ice water that can only be described as voluntary self-inflicted discomfort. A wave of unease rippled through the assembled scholars. This is unacceptable, Prib declared. If we are to maintain our position as the galaxy's leading intellectuals, we must demonstrate that we, too, can withstand these so-called heat rituals. Robnik flared his nasal membranes. Are you proposing we engage in this lunacy? Precisely, Prib stated with an unwavering resolve that would have been commendable had it not been so thoroughly misguided. A mere 2 weeks later, a delegation of Zarikian dignitaries arrived on Earth, led by Prib herself. Gree, who had remained on Earth for continued observation and a touch of morbid fascination, met them at the landing site with mixed emotions. You actually came, he asked, his voice laced with disbelief. Indeed, Prib responded, her posture rigid with determination. We will not permit humans to hold a monopoly on the art of enduring discomfort in the pursuit of self-improvement. Lead us to their chambers of aqueous torment. The delegation was led to the same spa where Gree had undergone his initial hot water experience. Brenda, radiating an almost unnerving cheerfulness, greeted them. Wow, more visitors. You guys are really into these spa treatments, huh? Prib, with the solemnity of someone about to embark on a sacred quest, proclaimed, we are here to experience your hot water treatment. Brenda, momentarily confused, tilted her head. Well, you're in the right spot. We've got hot tubs, saunas, steam rooms, whatever you're looking for. Steam rooms, whispered a Zarikian delegate, eye stalks trembling. They expose themselves to scalding vapor? Gree sighed. You'll acclimate. Or at least, the screaming will eventually subside. Grobar Yilk, a mid-level official known for his cautious nature, was the first Zarikian brave enough to enter the hot tub. His body stiffened as he sank into the water. "It's burning," he shrieked, thrashing as if the water were a living predator. "My very molecules are dissolving." Brenda chuckled. "It's just the initial shock. Trust me, it's beneficial." Grobar turned to Prib, his gelatinous skin quivering. "This is a form of psychological manipulation. I'm convinced of it." Prib, ignoring him, stepped resolutely into the hot tub. Her expression immediately morphed into a blend of astonishment and betrayal. "Why does this feel like slow simmering?" "It's quite relaxing once you adjust," Brenda offered encouragingly. "Relaxing?" Prib gasped. "This is a deliberate attack on one's very being." Despite their initial distress, the Zarikians persevered, determined to conquer this peculiar ordeal. One by one, they endured the hot tub, each emerging with a combination of wonder and apprehension. By the time they were introduced to the sauna, their resolve was beginning to falter. "Why are the walls constructed from wood?" Grobar demanded. "It feels like being trapped within a burning tree." Prib, beads of perspiration forming on her gelatinous skin, gritted her teeth. "We must persevere. For the sake of scientific inquiry." Gree, observing from a prudent distance, couldn't help but feel a grudging admiration for their stubbornness. "You're all mad," he muttered, though a part of him felt a strange sense of shared experience. Brenda, oblivious to the existential crisis unfolding before her, offered Prib a refreshing glass of cucumber water. "You guys are doing great. Next, we'll try the cold plunge."